I'd like to welcome you to yet another episode of the Healthcare Leadership Excellence Podcast. We have our most frequent flyer with us today. Um, Rob Orman just keeps putting out great material that when I read it on his blogs that he sends me, I keep saying, Rob, yet another one. And he just sends back anytime, Carl. So, Dr. Rob, thank you and welcome.
It is such a treat to be here, and it's a great excuse just to chat and hang out.
Absolutely. So, our listeners know, and those that read the writings that I send out, um, I am a customer service fanatic.
Yeah.
I know when I see it and I know when I don't. Um, I've been in many settings that is just over the top good service, great eye contact, good. You just feel like you're important. And not in an ego way, in a, wow, I'd like to come back to this establishment sort of way. And just 2 days ago, I was dropping off a box at a store that will remain anonymous, and I had just the opposite experience. I walk in the door, and this guy kind of shuffles to the counter, no eye contact, looks at my box, which has an Amazon label on it. That's the wrong label. No hi, no, that's the wrong label. Well, it's the label Amazon sent us and said I could bring it here to your store. Can't help you. Okay, what are my options? Here's their customer service number. Call them. And it's just, so there's nothing you can do to help me. No, not with that label. And okay. Now, he could have picked up the phone, Rob, and phoned that number and said, I need this label for a customer here. Could you help me out? And because that's what I did when I got back in the car, and the guy within 10 minutes had the label all ready for me. So not to whine and gripe here, but customer service is so simple. And when I saw your writing on customer service and medicine, I thought, I've got to have Rob and talk about this. So thoughts as we start out before I start pummeling you with questions?
Okay. I want to tell you what has popped up in my mind. So I do the grocery shopping for our family. And it's funny, Melissa, my wife, she'll be at home at the command center and I'll be on FaceTime and I'll be shopping around. And we've done it for years that way. It's not like I don't know what to get. It's just how we do it. And I shop at three primary places: at Trader Joe's, at Food for Less, although it changed its name, but Food for Less, and Costco. But I want to take Costco out of it. So Trader Joe's and Food for Less are across the street from each other.
Okay.
And it's funny. I mean, I'll see the same people. I'll go shop in Trader Joe's, and then we'll all go over to Food for Less to get the vegetables they don't have at Trader Joe's. It's just, it's like the ocean currents. you just know what's going to happen. And I have shopped at Trader Joe's for 25 years. I've shopped at Food for Less for, I don't know, 8 years. The prices are fairly similar. And overall, what they have, you can kind of get what you need at both places. The experience could not be more different. What I love going to Trader Joe's. In fact, I thought, maybe I'll even work there someday. I just love it so much. It's such a great vibe. And you check out and they're chatting you up, and you have something that's like, hey, did you want this, or this isn't right? And they'll say, this just doesn't look great. And they'll ring the bell and someone will come get it. And they are looking out for you. And they're so interested in you and how you go through the whole journey on your shopping. And then you walk into Food for Less, and it's gray, and it's kind of, the vibe is sort of depressing. And the people there are really lovely. I've seen the same people there for years. But it's kind of like, it feels like they are under the oppression of the man. And It's a completely different experience. It's kind of like, oh God, I kind of have to versus Trader Joe's, I get to. And I've talked to people who've worked at both places and behind the scenes, and it is 100% culture. It is culture. They are appreciated. They are valued. They are invested in the process. They are part of the system rather than you are a cog in the wheel. So that's what came up to me when you're talking about delivering your Amazon package. And I'm so sorry that you had that experience, my friend.
So, on to a happier note on the Trader Joe's side of the equation. We've had within the last 5-6 years, two medical events that were absolutely stellar with customer service. One, and I'll name the places. One was at Providence Newburgh Hospital in Providence, Oregon. The other one was at Legacy Meridian Park in Tualatin. Both times, and one was on Thanksgiving morning, where people are working on Thanksgiving, either voluntarily because they're getting quadruple pay or having to because they don't care about the pay. And both times, even the Providence Newburgh, I wrote a piece on it and put it on LinkedIn because I called it a view from the other side. Because Rob, it was just medicine at its best. Intricate surgery from start to finish. And I had my very brilliant assistant put it in a video format. And it's 8 minutes and 30 seconds of medical wow. And we had the same thing at Legacy at Thanksgiving. A really frightening event that they just covered it. Kept coming in. The radiologist is running a little behind. It won't be 10 minutes. It'll probably be 15 minutes. Usually you're in this room and you're just hoping that someone remembers you're there before, it's dinner time. But it was amazing. So, yet I know sometimes medicine can get a little, we're not a grocery store, we're not an airline, quit comparing us, and don't talk to us about customer service. Why is it a hot button?
Let's get into that. And I just framed it so beautifully. Let me put this one on your plate as someone who has been to Trader Joe's and someone who has been to Providence Newburgh and had great experiences in both places. What in your mind, and there's no gotcha here, but I want to know just what comes up for you, is the fundamental difference in your role or how you interact with the world as a customer and as a patient. What differentiates those two?
Honestly, nothing. Because I expect, in my demanding, bratty little way, of when I show up, I expect the same treatment I would give somebody. Whether it's the Trader Joe's person saying, "Oh, this lettuce doesn't look good," versus, when we cruised in that waiting room at Legacy, it was someone had phoned ahead. They knew that we were coming in on a really dicey possibility. It was just, the wheel was greased. We were right in, we were taken care of. And it was exactly, my wife was in crisis and we were treated without exception in an amazing way. And I emphasize that I grew up in Motel 6, not Ritz-Carlton. So it's not that I'm this entitled, I need everything. It's just when one of my family members is compromised, my expectation shoots up. And man, it was nice to have it met so well.
I love all that. And let's build on it. And the terminology here is a little slippery because it is somewhat a matter of semantics as you get to that. Your perspective is no different if you are a customer, if you are a patient. I don't even see those needing to have separate words. One of the reasons that the term customer really grates on clinicians is that customer implies transaction, that this is transactional. If you are staying at the Four Seasons, you are paying for a service, and I'm a customer. I expect a certain amount of service. This is a transaction. And medicine, at least from the eyes of the clinician, is not purely transactional. There's a lot more to it. In business, you think, well, the customer is always right to some degree. Even when you think they're wrong, giving them what they want, or that's the end. For the patient, that's not always good for the patient, because I have an expertise that you don't have about your body, about your health, and you are coming to me for that expertise, for that guidance, for that advice. So there's one difference, but the term is slippery. There's no clear metric. There's no universally agreed upon definition. Here, you and I, friends, co-coaches, it's like even we differ on this. And at its core, I think that customer service, and whether this is right or wrong, I'm not going to say, but customer service implies servitude, catering to demands to keep people happy. And there's a fine point in there, because medicine, as a clinician, medicine is a life of service. But that doesn't mean that I am your servant. So reframing the issue out of customer service, you are not a customer. This is not service in the same way that service at Trader Joe's or Best Buy or the Four Seasons is service. This is experience. You are a patient, and I'm going to guide you through an excellent experience so that you come out the other end like you did, Carl, saying, wow.
Okay, a couple of things. I've just been so fortunate over the years that I haven't had, through a variety of emergency room visits, we've never struck out in regards to walking away with a wow, which is pretty commendable considering what healthcare is going through. What keeps coming through my mind, and one of the times, and just full transparency here, we're on a vacation down in Utah. I get these crushing chest pains. They don't go away. I go to the ER and, get wired up, everything, etc. And everything comes back clear. Now, Dr. Maybe, because I still remember his name, he'd sit down and he'd kind of chat with us as we first came in. He explained what was going to happen. He gave us some good news. Everything was clear. But then he left the customer service servitude role, as you describe it, and became very much and now this is what you're going to do, Carl. When you get home, you will need to do A, B, C, and D. There was no concierge in his voice. There was, I'm the expert and you are not in a hierarchical way. But the thing that got me still in a wow state, everything up to that point, he was, and I love what you said about servant and servitude. There was no hierarchy. There was no, I'm the doc and you're not. It was absolutely, this is a miserable way to at 2 a.m. I understand. He was just the most gracious communicator. That then when he started in with and this is what you will do, And he put his hand on my knee and said, Carl, this is serious. We have good news today. I want it to stay that way. And he looked over at my wife, because I don't think he thought he was selling me. He said, would you please make sure that he follows through on this? So he was definitely delivering a message, what I needed to hear, not what I wanted to hear. But because of what he'd done in the first couple of hours of the visit, he could have told me to do a backflip off of a cliff. And I would have said, wow, doctor maybe said I should do that. Your thoughts about that?
I love that you distinguish that want versus need. And in medicine, sometimes you are going to give bad news. And yeah, I mean, you actually don't even know how the news will be interpreted in the context of that patient's life. So someone might not hear what they want, but do they hear what they need? And do you prioritize this person's dignity and treat them with respect? I'm glad that you have had home runs in your medical experiences. It's not always that way. And you're talking about how Dr. Maybe was talking to you, kind of getting on your level, making contact. There was none of that, hey, kiss my doctor ring, kiss my ring, which happens. It absolutely happens. And that happens between doctors. When we're talking about, customer service, patient experience, the end result is similar, even though what we're talking about need as a patient experience, want customer service. But what do you do to ensure that there is a net positive patient experience? It's all free. It's free. We don't need a corporate consultant. We don't need to build a fountain in the waiting room, which, it's nice, trickling water. Who doesn't love it? So free things, validate someone's concerns. I mean, that is the lowest hanging fruit. In the emergency department, that is the most common complaint about the most recent visit is they didn't listen to me. Validate their concerns. Listen attentively. If they're frustrated, redirect it towards a solution. And then what Dr. Maybe was doing, give clear explanations, clear communication. When you were at the hospital and they said, hey, it's going to be 15 minutes. Expectations, explanations. So clear explanations about what do I know? What do I not know? What do you remember, Carl? You don't know how Dr. Maybe graduated in his medical school class. And maybe he told you, but I bet he didn't. You remember how you were treated, whether you felt heard, if your concerns were validated. Did your doctor care? That's the feeling you want to come. So when you have that home run, think, okay, the expectation, the basement is the medical care is going to be on point, that these people know what they're doing. I hope that happens everywhere. The thing on top of that determines experience is all this other stuff. Did this institution care and take me through this process with transparency, listening, validation, and making sure that I was okay going through it?
Excellent. So you know the drill. Our listeners are driving to work. They're on the treadmill. They're looking to you and to me, I guess, for what can I do today on the unit, in the emergency department? What can I do to put some of this into practice? As an emergency room physician, you've hit some really key points. Validating concerns, listening attentively. How do you, well, I'm rambling here. You gave a great example in your writing. And I'll just read to our audience how you put it. About the terminally ill loved one. The family demands you do everything to keep this person alive. So talk about what customer service would do versus the patient experience, the want and the need. We desperately want to keep Dad alive. And again, a very personal experience. 2 years ago in January, we get the phone call from the hospital and my sister's on the line. Hospitals told us that Dad has collapsed. He's in the hospital. Do we have medical power of attorney? So we go zipping to the file to find it. When we get back on the line, their first words, Rob, are, "We are so sorry," because he had passed in those 2 minutes. And they were just so apologetic. And we were both, he was 94. He had lived a marvelous life. He literally died while he was eating lunch, joking with a good friend. Collapsed. And yet, so they were thinking about what we probably wanted. What Dad needed was to be able to go gracefully and not go to a rest home on tubes for the rest of his life at age 94. So, but it doesn't always turn out that way. And you've been live action. I can't imagine that this scenario you put forward is not one you've actually lived. So talk to us about that.
Have lived that many times, probably hundreds of times, that situation. And I really liked those situations because you can help a family through guilt and whatever they're carrying into this and whatever it is that they're wanting to keep this person alive. So the customer service mindset, you're talking about, give them what they want. Okay, we're going to intubate, push ahead with aggressive interventions. I want to avoid conflict. Let's just go. Patient experience mindset. And the patient at this time is not just your dad, it's you, it's your sister. I mean, it's really, it's everybody. At this point, it is also a compassionate conversation. Talk about prognosis, goals of care, what truly benefits the patient, your dad. And something like, hey, this is an incredibly difficult situation and nobody wants to get here. Let me ask you this. Where is your dad in the arc of his life? What's going on with his life? What do you think he wants? And so it's getting into that listening, values, where they are, and just to get people thinking about the global picture, what's in the best interest, what does this person need? Now, sometimes they say, please, can you put him on a ventilator, get him in the ICU, keep him alive for another hour so that our family can get here and be, of course I can. Yes, absolutely. Now, it's a very different mindset of, we realize that this person is actively dying. We are going to allow a natural death. We're going to do it in a way that is compassionate so that there's not suffering, so that you can be present and involved, versus, all right, we're going to do everything we can. Let's keep him alive. We know that's not going to work. It's not going to happen. There's going to be death at the end either way.
Wow. That's profound, Rob. I'd love to have some live listener comments right now. Wish we could, because that was beautifully stated. What happens when Carl, as the son in this case, desperately wants Dad to keep alive? And the comments of, where is he in the arc of life? It's, how dare you? He's still my father. He is alive right now. You are going to keep him alive. How do you help Carl in really the best of customer service?
Yeah.
How can you help him see what he wants isn't what he really needs, or that the patient needs? How do you do that? And this is where our listeners, I want you to be listening, because these are skills that, depending on your specialty, you might be using within hours.
And I don't know if I'm going to give an answer that you'll want to hear with this, because it's not, here's the Jedi mind trick that I would use. When you're faced with that situation and you see what's going on, the rest of the family, and there's actually a name for this. It's called the daughter from California phenomenon. The daughter from California phones in. They haven't seen dad for years. They have so much guilt and shame, and it's all coming up right now. And so there's so much subtext and family history to that. No, you must keep them alive. I don't know that. I don't know that history. But there's a lot behind that statement. You'd think, gosh, any rational person would say, yeah, just let them do what they want. But there's so much finality to this moment. It is the ultimate finality that you've got to be gentle as well. Gentle with yourself, gentle with them. And there's many different approaches to it, but in the acute setting, and this is just what I'm from, I work with ICU docs as well, but in the acute setting, you got to slow things down. And okay, let's take a pause for a minute. You got to pause yourself. You got to pause them. And there is no way that you will turn them on a dime to say, look at the logic of this. You're not going to solve that emotional response with logic. And there's probably going to be family discord. And sometimes you need to intubate the patient, or you need to stabilize them until the family, gets their things together. So that is one approach. And they'll go up to the ICU and have family conferences. And generally within a day or two, there's kind of, okay, we can see the writing on the wall. We've come to terms with it. It's hard to come to terms in that acute setting. But there's other times where I hear what you're saying. I totally do. And I have your dad's wishes right here. And this is incredibly hard to let go, to say goodbye. But here's him talking to me right now on this paper. He wrote down, he signed this, that if this happens, I want you to let me go. And it's a lot of it reading the room of, let me understand your values. I can't just posit myself right into that situation. Where are you coming from? Where's this family coming from? Just sit with this, talk with the family. And, I don't need to be some, hardcore interventionalist here and sway you to what is the right way of thinking. So I think there's a gentleness to it. There is a listening. There's also needs to be respect for this person who is dying, because they're sometimes they are the victim of one of their family members, what's usually guilt.
So to our listeners here, when you have a second, please rewind and just go back to about 5 minutes on the recording. And because you have just heard pure gold when it comes to customer service. Because the fine line that you have to walk as a provider, whether nurse or MA or physician or surgeon, boy, as Rob just described it, that's the gold standard that he just described. What gets in the way of that?
Bandwidth, not having the bandwidth to take the time to do that. When you're rushed, when you're pressured, there's so many other tasks. In the emergency department, you're having these conversations. There's 3 other ambulances coming in. There's patients that need to be dispositioned. You have procedures, and it is so hard to be fully present. Anything that takes you away from being fully there is going to, in some degree, thwart the quality of that conversation. And also thinking about it in advance and practicing and thinking, how am I going to approach this? If you try to figure this out right then and there, it's not going to go well. This needs to be something that is pre-thought. And the other thing that can get in the way of that is your own stuff coming up. Your own background, your own values, and ego. All of those things that are always on patrol that we're not always aware of. But if you have some sort of a visceral reaction, what is going on with my visceral reaction? What am I feeling right now? Where's that coming from? And see if you can just put that to the side for a moment.
Any I just go to a comment made by a marvelous surgeon that I was working with when they were talking about bandwidth and burnout. She says, if I hear one more person suggest I take a yoga class, I'm gonna go homicidal. So, obviously, I didn't need to tell you that because you give good advice. If I'm that emergency physician, or any a high pressure surgeon, whatever the case may be, a nurse that due to staffing is 5-1 on a nasty unit, any suggestions on being able to expand the bandwidth when you feel like you're being crushed?
You want to talk about this particular situation when you want to? I mean,
whatever way you can address it best.
There are many, many ways, but I mean, the more task saturated you become, the more you lose bandwidth, or the less bandwidth that you have to act. And some of this involves structure, is applying structure and strategy to how a shift goes, because if it's completely chaotic and you don't have a defined approach and it's trying to do it on the fly, bandwidth is going to be less. But in a situation like this, we talk about time blocking. If we work with a client who's got time management challenge, like, okay, let's back up and protect the things that are meaningful. So here's something that is important to be present with. At a time like this, when you need protected time, and you also need protected brain space that I'm not going to get pulled out unless someone's in a cardiac arrest, you get your team together, let them know what's going on, that you need some time. You might even need a partner. Hand them your phone so that you don't get a call. Take a couple breaths and just settle yourselves. All right, I've got protected time.
So I always get eye rolls, and so I want this to go on record.
Yep.
From a professional physician.
Yeah.
Tell us why take a couple of breaths is a biological antidote to going down the wrong track. Why does it work?
Yeah, and I love it when physicians tell me that they can't do something or something it's like, I've worked in there for decades. You can totally do that. It is go kicking, screaming. Why will it do? So one reason is you are sympathetically activated. Your tachometer's in the red line. If you take a few breaths, it activates the parasympathetic nervous system. That's number one. If you're way, way in the red line, you're not going to think clearly. If you can turn that down a little bit, you got more of a chance. The other thing is, if you pay attention to your breath, that only exists in one place, right here and now. It only exists in the present moment. That's it. It's not thinking about stuff in the past. It's not thinking about stuff in the future. It brings you to right here, right now. And that's where you need to be when you're speaking with this patient's family or with this patient.
Marvelous. So I interrupted you on breathing when I was saying how to expand bandwidth. Other items?
I think we're good. I think it's simple. It's, if that is time worth protecting, then protect that time. Protect that moment, protect that space.
So one thing here, I know we're coming on time. If there's anyone out there in the physician world that is really struggling, knowing that their patient experience / customer service, their whole approach to this is struggling. Check in the show notes and you'll have contact information. Our guest today, Dr. Rob Orman, is an absolute resource. I cannot say enough about how he just comes alive when he's working with physicians. I wish this was a visual as well as an audio, because Rob, as you were talking about just the breathing, you've walked this path. This is not theory with you. This is absolute, Carl, this works because I've done it. And that's what you bring. That's why I love having you as a guest on these things.
Oh, thank you so much for that, Carl. It's funny as you say it, I'm thinking of, yeah, all the times when I've needed to do this in critical situations when I was shaking and so amped up that all I saw was just white in my brain. It's like, wow, I need to lead this team and work on this patient or things aren't going to go well.
Exactly. So again, patient experience, customer service, it's a delicate area, but I think to wrap us up, the 3 examples I gave about my wow experiences, they were wow because of what happened strategically and situationally. Strategically, we were treated respectful. Again, to your points, our concerns were validated. They listened attentively. When we got frustrated, we had solutions. May not have been the solutions we wanted, but because we'd been listened to and we had our concerns validated, then when they came in with information that wasn't really on the top of our list, there we go. And then again, we haven't really talked about this as much, but they provided clear explanations. And they also asked, Carl, do you have any questions? And they clarified again. So any closing thoughts before we wrap this episode up?
I love that you finished it with the end cap of every quality new patient encounter or patient encounter in general is the unspoken concern, pulling that out. What am I not asking you? What are we incomplete on? Is there something else that's on your mind? Beautiful.
Marvelous. Well, this ends today's episode, but to our listeners, you will be able to hear Rob very soon because Rob, if you keep putting out the materials you do, I'm just going to keep interviewing you. Thanks for being with us today.